Happy New Year to you.
Yeah. Evening, folks. Thanks for coming out. Hope you're all doing well and belated Happy New Year. Christmas, New Year, all done our way. In the bag for another year gone. So, tonight we are joined again by this lovely lady, Mackenzie, from the Shadows of York.
You nearly forgot then, didn't you?
I did. It's happened to me a couple of times. I've had folk on and I've forgotten where they're from. You know, they're groupers and they've had to tell me we're from blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, you know. So, Mackenzie is a tour guide in York, basically. She was with us, I don't know, a couple of months ago.
Hey? Sorry?
You were... Mackenzie sometimes has bother understanding my Scottish accent.
It's also not coming very loudly on the thing, so...
I said you were with us a couple of months ago.
Yes, I was with you. I thought you meant I was only working a couple of months ago. That's how that came across. I was like, what do you mean I was only working 2 months ago? Yes, I was with you a couple of months ago. This is going to be a very fun podcast.
Jeez, Razy. Come on. Get a grip, woman. Come on. You're meant to be professional. You know. See, you can say that without laughing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm playing with Lego, actually. We've got Lego there. We've got, Sarah's got, it was Hagrid's house. We'll party it for
all right.
Harry Potter. But a lovely little dog got a hold of it and decided to take it apart, basically. So
right.
Wee bits and pieces lying on the desk. I don't know. I'm even going to try. I don't know how to put it back together again, but they're lying there. There's our young Laura in. Evening, dear. Hope you're well.
Hello there.
Aye. So, Mackenzie asked me yesterday what we were talking about, and I said I don't have a clue. So I've jotted down a couple of things that she's going to tell us about. And the first one being, I'll probably get it wrong, your cup. I've wrote it down. Coven of Curiosity. I'm well prepared tonight, aren't I?
So Coven of Curiosity is a new shop in York. It's a great shop run by a lovely lady, and I've actually got a very interesting story for that. So Sam, who is the lady who runs it, the shop itself is basically a mixture of everything from witches' ingredients. So if you're a pagan Wiccan or just somebody who wants to have a go at witchcraft, you know, they can get all your ingredients there. But she also sells things like tarot cards, little ghosts that she makes, but also there's people who make candles, you know, with like spooky ghosts and things on them, scented ones, you know, and that she sells them. She uses a lot of people that are local to the area who sell spooky artwork and nice gifts. So if you've got friends, family, whatever that you're thinking, oh, what do I get for the birthday, Christmas, whatever, you can definitely go in there and you'll find something. And there's some wonderful stuff in there, from dolls to incense to bath bombs and everything. It's a marvelous shop. She's really worked hard on it. Anyway, so I paint little landscapes for a hobby, really, but I like to sell them as well because they're wonderful little mini easels, and I put little ghost on them. So she sells them for me, as well as put them on my Etsy shop, and sometimes I put them on the page, and many of my fans and people have bought them. Some of my friends who are fans have become friends who have bought loads of them. Bless them, they love them. But anyway, last year she opened the shop, and just before she opened, I got an email through from her, just out of the blue. And she said, I'm opening up a shop. It's called Coven of Curiosities. And there's a room at the back. And I wondered if you'd be interested in using it for your tour or something, because it's nearby where we start. And I thought initially I thought it'd be a good idea, but then if the shop's not there for a long time, I didn't want to lose our spot that we've had for years, and people know we're there. And, you know, so I thought, no, we'll keep it where it is. But, you know, we could maybe use the back room for little evenings of ghost stories or something like that. And I thought, well, this sounds like a business proposition. I'd like to meet you in person and talk to you about it, because I don't like doing things on the phone always, or, you know, email. And she says, that's fine, but I haven't got the keys for it yet. So do you want to come and visit me at my home. I said, yeah, okay. Where do you live? And she says, I live in a village called Rickle. And my ears picked up because I grew up in Rickle. And Rickle's a village just outside of York. And then she says, oh, well, I live with my husband. He has the pub in Rickle. And I said, which pub? And she said, the Greyhound. I said, that's really spooky because I grew up in the Greyhound pub. That was my home for 10 years as a kid.
Right.
And in the back of my head, I was thinking, this is really weird because literally just weeks before I knew anything about the shop or the lady in question, I was painting my paintings and I thought to myself, do you know, I wish there was a shop where I could sell these, but I don't want to actually have a shop. I just wish I could sell them or have them sold on my behalf, you know. And then obviously she crops up and I said, yeah, I'll come and meet you. It will be a bit surreal to go to my old family home, especially as my father's since passed away and I've got a lot of memories there and things. Anyway, I went in and I said to her, can I ask you a question before we go on any further? Because this is something that's very interesting to me. I says, my parents never believed me and other people never seem to acknowledge it. But have you ever noticed any hauntings here at this pub? And she said to me, yes, there's a really tall shadow figure who haunts downstairs, I've noticed. And I said, you know, I'm really pleased you said that, but the difference is he was never downstairs for me. He was always upstairs in the corridors or in my room. He's a really tall, dark shadow figure. And I always used to think that's really horrible, really scary. But I just wondered if when I was putting out a prayer and a wish, you know, to have somewhere to sell my artwork, that it went to her, because I then said to her, why did you just contact me and didn't contact anyone else as such? And she said, I don't know, I just felt compelled to talk to you.
That's quite.
Yeah, uncanny. Yeah, she just said, I just felt compelled to reach out to you first. So there we go.
I was going to say interesting, but I think everybody uses that word interesting. That's interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah,
I mean,
but she.
But no, it's uncanny how.
It is. Yeah, yeah. And anyway, since then, I did do a couple of Evening of Ghost Stories there. And before I did the first one, which was in October, you know, we had to do a bit of a quick turnaround, really. And the room's only small, so you can only get about 15, 16 people in there. But it's quite nice and atmospheric. And I didn't mind because it's going to be my first production that I put on for a decade, you know, and it was just going to be me, nobody else, you know. And I wanted to do it differently, so it wasn't telling normal stories of York, or maybe tell something slightly different, maybe have some props and things. Not necessarily special effects, just, you know, something. But I wanted to reacquaint myself with how to really get into people's heads a bit more. And I've got a friend who, by trade, he's a performer, but he's also a magician and an illusionist and psychologist, you know, and works out how to distress people, you know. So messing with him. You know what I mean? Like convince people that there's something there when it isn't, kind of a Darren Brown sort of thing.
Right,
because the Evening of Ghost Stories isn't meant to be about the history. It is meant to be ghost storytelling and to entertain you, as it should be, you know, in a spooky setting, like a theatre setting. Anyway, I went to go see him and he gave me a couple of props and he said, right, so you tell this sort of story in this way and, you know, you can do this and that and the other. So I'm not going to tell you what I did, but it definitely worked and the feedback was really good. You know, people loved it. And then when I came to do my second Evening of Ghost Stories, I thought I'm going to do it a bit more traditional to a degree. I'm not going to have loads of props and things like that, but I had to go and find some different stories. And I did actually talk about the history of a couple of buildings that are got a York postcode, but they're not York. They're quite a bit further away. One of which is Nunnington Hall, which I think you want to ask me about. Another one was about Benningborough Hall, but they both have ghost stories and legends attached. And there's another place called Howsham Hall, which is now used for wedding venues, but you can't just rock up and go visit. You have to be getting married there, basically. But that has a few bits and pieces to it. So it was nice to tell these stories that you never ever hear on tour, or indeed, I think one of them I've told on my lockdown videos, which obviously are now since gone. So it was just nice to actually tell something different, and little bits of history when I could on the Christmas one. And then next time, I'm not sure what I'm going to do because it depends on whether the shop is still going to be in that location or elsewhere. So I'm just waiting to see at the minute.
No, as you say, it is nice to tell different stories because there's that many, York, everywhere. But I mean, York is hundreds of years worth of history, and when you
Yeah,
do
yeah,
your tours, you can't fit it all in. So it is, and you might say pick out 5 or 6 different stories for your tour, however it works.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
there might be another 20, 30 stories sitting that you would love to tell.
Oh, there's loads I'd love
You
to
know.
tell, but you can't get to those places, and it's just nice to actually tell these different stories in that setting. Yeah, yeah,
And as you say, the room's quite small, which I think's better. I think
yeah,
it would create a better atmosphere rather than doing it in a big hall
yeah.
or a
Well, I don't
studio
have
or
to
whatever.
shout. I can speak normally. And when you're telling a story normally in a normal voice, or you can go quieter. And the other thing that I adopted whilst I was doing it, because I hadn't done it for a long time, I used to do a lot of scare attraction work, where you tell stories, but you're really creepy and you get in people's faces a little bit. I don't mean like go boo and all that, but I just mean be a bit more intimidating. And at times, not in the second one, but in the first evening of Ghost Stories, I was very, very intimidating. And even my friends who knew me, who'd seen me before or worked with me before, there was a couple of them that came along. Even afterwards, they came to me and said, that was bit intense.
But
And
people
they came back.
remember that.
You what?
That people remember that, but I mean,
They
if you
do.
go along at night and you get somebody telling stories, and it's just the same kind of
Yeah,
mundane tone
monotone
all
all the
right
way
through.
through it. Yeah.
Like that, well, that was all right. But if you get somebody that gets right into it and their voice goes up and down and stuff like that, then folk remember that,
Yeah.
and it's
And
the old word
also,
of mouth thing.
yeah, and also I was being very much myself as well. So while I flitted between character and non-character and stuff, I also brought me into the room, to like, I want to say, I don't mean I walked out and came back in, I just meant myself, and talking to them as well. So they had that realism to it rather than it just being
Aye.
an act,
Yeah.
which really also goes deeper still.
No, I agree with that totally because I mean we've done a lot in Edinburgh and there's a few tour. I'm not putting anybody down, but there's a few tour companies in Edinburgh, and we've passed some of them and we're listening to their guides doing their bit,
Yeah.
and you can tell it's kind of it's so scripted and they're
Mm,
just kind of rhyming it off. Sarah and I
yeah.
done one a few years ago now, and it was meant to be a tour of just the vaults, but they took us to about 4 or 5 different places on the Royal Mile, which was great, but right, we're going to go here, and such we see, and blah blah blah. They nailed his head to the door, and he died,
Mm,
and we'll go
yeah.
there, and and they put the kid on fright and all the rest of it. I'm just not into this at all.
Yeah.
Whereas, you get somebody, Jamie Christopherson's really good for it. When he gives a tour, he gets right into it, and he's just himself. He doesn't try to be fancy or
Yeah.
anything,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to be because people go away, and I think they learn so much more.
Mm. I mean, don't get me wrong, when I'm telling a story on tour, I can be quite theatrical, but it's a good, healthy balance. But the thing is, all these tours, there's something for everybody because some people like the theatrics, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just depending on what you like. And I enjoy a good storyteller as long as it's not monotone script, where it's blatantly, we've got to get you to this place as quickly as possible, spiel it up as quickly as possible. It's the same thing, never changes, and then on to the next bit. Not going to change it to suit the audience. Whereas I can alter to suit my audience because I look at them and go, are they enjoying this? Are they not?
Well, aye, because I mean, without your audience, you've got nothing. But I know what you mean. You know, they go work. That's how we felt that night. We did the one in Edinburgh. You know, we went to get St Giles first and say, right, what, right, we're going Mary King's close next, right? Let's go across. Right, we're down like 5 minutes here. Right, we'll take you down here. We'll stand there, go to Tolbooth. And you think, you're just getting herded about the place. You know, and it's a quick 5 minute spiel, and then right, excuse the French, where the fuck are we going now?
Yeah.
And they walked dead fast, I know. I don't know about the tour guides in York.
And I don't mean to. I've got long legs, you know. I'm only little, it's a short body, but I've got long legs and I just end up marching. I go, oh, I better slow down because some poor swine on this tour can't walk that quick.
You see them sprinting up the Royal Mount, right? We're going, these Giles next, let's go. You get some poor folk in the back, you know. See, it's good, but you know, it's good for the tourists and stuff like that. See, Christmas is just been and going, and York, we know, is a very historic and very haunted, active place. I try to use the word active rather than haunted. I like to say active.
Good word.
So many different kind of meanings to it.
Yes.
We'd obviously you spend a lot of time out and about, round about Christmas time. Do you think the place, the atmosphere, do you think the whole town, city is more active spirit-wise at that time of year?
Do you know what? It's difficult to say because there's so many living people floating about. Excuse my, you know, the way I've described that. But because there's so many people in York, you can't always zone in on it. Whereas when it's quieter, like this time of year, you can probably acknowledge a feeling better. Does that make sense? And York is very festive at Christmas, you know, and very much a nice, loving kind of feeling because York has become this very pretty city. It's only because of our knowledge of it. But it isn't until you go somewhere where there's not very many people. So, for example, on a tour, I'll take people down to Treasurer's House. And then, yes, you will feel that there's an atmosphere. I certainly noticed there was a bit more of an atmosphere around the Treasurer's House these last few weeks. More than normal, because normally I don't pick up anything around there. And it has been a bit active, but nothing happening. It's just a feeling of presence of being watched or something. But otherwise, no, it's kind of the same, in my opinion. But definitely the one thing I will say is that, yes, we celebrate Halloween. Halloween is very spooky season and everything else, and it's great. It's the only time I can walk through the city and not feel alone dressed up because everybody's dressed up. But Christmas is the traditional time to tell stories, and it's also meant to be when the veil is the thinnest. Never mind Halloween, and traditionally, it's you got your winter solstice, and everybody used to keep warm around a fire and tell stories, good or bad, or ghostly or non-ghostly. And you're waiting for the nicer weather to come. You're waiting for the harvest to come. You're hoping everything's going to be okay, and you reflect on the past year, and you reflect on people that you probably lost. And then you tell stories and ghost stories, and they weren't always just to frighten you, but to kind of give you a feel of, you know, that there's something afterwards, or you know, some comfort in knowing your loved ones are there, sort of thing. So yeah,
that always puzzled me because obviously growing up, you know, Christmas was a time of happiness and joy and getting presents and you know,
yeah, it is
celebration. Yeah. And I used to wonder, well, why do folk tell scary stories?
Yeah. Well, I didn't realise until more recent years that traditionally it is at Christmas. But when you think about it, well, you got Charles Dickens, you got Victorian ghost stories, got an evening of ghost stories with Christopher Lee and M.R. James. I'd say Christopher Lee because I used to read them all, but you know, all those others. And you think, hang on, where's that come from? And I didn't acknowledge until now. Well, I say now again, most recent years. You've got Andy Williams' song. It's the most wonderful time of the year, that song. And at some point in the lyrics, it says they'll be telling Christmas ghost stories or spooky stories or something. And I thought, oh, yeah, that's even mentioned in his song.
It does make you kind of wonder, you know, Christmas for kids and all the rest of it. Like, why the hell are you trying to scare the crap out of people?
Yeah, the night before you're meant to wake up and be really happy. Maybe it's so that you'll be more excited. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Go to bed, go to sleep, because Santa comes tonight. But before you go to bed, I've got a little story to tell you.
Yeah.
There's about a headless man that walks about. You know, the kids are going to go off to bed and no bother after that, isn't they? You know,
Yeah, exactly. They're thinking to themselves, oh, yeah, is it Santa or is it a ghost?
who's bringing my new Xbox tonight? You know, is it the headless man?
Yeah.
Is it Santa?
Or is it Krampus or death?
I know there's a couple of films. I've never actually watched any films with Krampus in it.
I only ever watched the one. I didn't know there was that many of them, but yeah.
I know there's a few of them. I do know there's a few of them. So as I said, I was looking on your page, and the words "Are you watching the snooker tonight?" kept popping up every now and again.
Yeah. Yes.
And there was a wee picture of somebody in the background.
You. So basically, I couldn't post the video onto Shadows of York because it's BBC and I'm not allowed to use it to promote Shadows of York, and that's fine. But I can put it on my actors page because it is a credit, if that makes sense. But basically, whilst the UK Championships were being done or happening, being played, at the Barbican, which they do, quite randomly out of the blue, I got contacted by one of the producers saying that they had an idea to do a more Dickensian spooky sort of idea for the review, and would I be interested in filming that? And I thought, oh my goodness, yes, I'd love that. And a bit bittersweet because my father used to watch the snooker, and I thought he'd have been so proud of this, you know. I wish he'd seen it. I'm sure he's seen it up there somehow. But anyway, I filmed it, but it was just unfortunate that on the night of filming, I had a tour beforehand, and I did the tour. It was absolutely bouncing down with rain, and it rained throughout the tour, and then it rained throughout the whole time of us filming. And when I say that I couldn't feel my feet by the end of it, I really meant I couldn't feel my feet. And I don't like the cold anyway, so I really, really was frozen solid by the end of it. And we did it for 3 hours. So basically, I'd spent 5 hours in the cold and the rain that night. 3 hours to film what was basically a 6-minute stint. But obviously, we were going to different locations and things like that to get whatever we needed. Then, you know, record the voiceover on top of that just to make sure it was all correct and what have you. But the thing is I wasn't sure whether they'd definitely play it or not. And you're not allowed with any form of filming, whether it's that or, you know, if you're an actor and you've done a film or a TV show or anything, you can't discuss what you've done. You know, it's non-disclosure and stuff. And so, and because I wasn't entirely sure they'd actually use the footage, I didn't make a big song and dance about it. And I only told 1 or 2 people, friends-wise. I didn't actually tell everybody because I thought, yeah, this might not happen. And even if it does happen, I'm not going to get bombarded by people saying, oh, what did you do and all that. I can't tell you. Cannot tell you. I don't even know what they're going to use. I don't know how long it'll last. So
basically, you knew nothing about it.
So you've got to be very careful. And anyway, but I thought I am allowed to say, you know, I think you should watch the snooker because, you know, I think you should watch snooker. So I put it on there. But again, I wasn't sure if it was going to be daytime or nighttime, but it made sense that they do it in the nighttime because of the type of vibe it was. So when it came to it, it actually came on. I was sat in this living room or two with Dan, one of my tour guides, and another friend, Matt, and the cat, of course, who are currently asleep, thankfully. And it came on, and it was just so surreal to see me doing that on the big screen. I've been an extra in the background on TV and Heartbeat and other stuff like that in the past, but not an actual speaking role.
I remember that Heartbeat. That's going back a few years.
It was the last series before it finished. I was a student in the background heckling somebody when the car comes along with all the other students. So if you're ever watching it and you see that scene where somebody's chucking eggs or whatever at a car, it's me.
You know, that's your claim to fame. So you're a famous actress then. You're on that. Was that no?
And it's literally a minute for a split second. So unless you know I'm there, you'll miss it. You know, I can't. It's only a walk-on support artist or extra, basically, not a performing role as such. But see, anyway, so to see me on there was a very proud moment and quite nice. And as it was being played, my phone was pinging, ping, 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 ping. And those people I hadn't spoken to for about a decade messaging me going, "You're on the telly." I was like, "Yeah, I am." And one of my friends says, "You watch, your exes will all come crawling out of the woodwork."
Aye, because they think you're a big star and stuff like that.
Yeah. I hope the ones that I'm currently dating or whatever want to come out of the woodwork. And anyway, they didn't. But yeah, it was funny, very, very surreal and quite nice. And then when it had all been done, they thanked me very much and paid the fee. And then they eventually let me have the footage, but just said, don't use it. You can't use it, which is fine. It's their property, but I can use it as a credit, and so it is a credit. And that was it. And it was very nice. And I just thought, yep, I'll do that again. It was worth it in the end, but yeah, 3 hours in the freezing cold.
It's not,
in the rain. So I do look a little bit dishevelled in the videos, I won't lie, because I'm all wet, but probably added to the atmosphere as well.
That's the only thing you can't guarantee is the weather. We had it when we did the Wallace show last year. You arranged to meet the Society of William Wallace in Stirling on a certain day, etc. And then you got that morning and it's absolutely bucketing down with rain. You think, we'd all planned for the day, so you need to put it off because you can't, because all the places we filmed were outside and there wasn't a lot of shelter at any of them. And it can be really, really annoying and frustrating trying to, as you said, put stuff together and what have you. And the weather, especially in Scotland, the weather sucks up here. Weather sucks big time up here.
I know it does. Do you know, no disrespect to you, but a few of my friends are like, "I'd love to live in Scotland." I was like, "No, it's always raining, it's always cold, it's always windy. I don't want to go up there, thank you." I'll go visit quite happily. My mum was from Scotland, but no, too cold.
Years ago, I was abroad. I was in Port de Carmen. Never forget it. And there was this wee guy, a wee Spanish guy, approached one day. He said, "Well, you Scottish? You Scottish?" I said, "I would." The accent gave me away. And he says, "I want to go to Scotland. I want to go to Scotland holiday." And I'm standing looking at this guy, and I'm thinking, you're standing there and you've got the sea, you've got the sand, the palm tree, you've got everything.
Yeah.
Sun's belting down. And he said, "I want to go to Scotland." And I'm like, "Why?"
Because it rains.
Well, you live in Lanzarote. It's beautiful here. And you want to go to Scotland. There's an old Billy Connolly type joke. He says, people have said to him, "I went to Scotland and it was raining." And Billy's were that close. It was raining in Scotland, basically. Do you know what I mean? We do it last year. I heard summer was actually okay last year. Okay-ish, But we're not near to talk about the weather. So I noticed the plague doctor statue. It's too cold. It's always rain. 99% of women are crab because of said things. Like that, Laura, and that's Laura's other half. Scotland is cool.
Oh, it is lovely. It is lovely in Scotland. I do like visiting when I can. Aye.
I mean, we do have a beautiful country up north. You got Loch Lomond, Glencoe, the Great.
I want to go to Loch Ness one day. I've still not been.
Never been to Loch Ness?
No, I need to go.
You want to try and see if you can find Nessie?
Aye. I don't think Nessie's an actual physical thing anymore. I think he's a ghost.
I'm saying nothing.
We'll see. If I get up there and I find him and I snap him, I'll be in two minds about whether to post it. I'll be going, oh, look, I finally got real evidence. Oh, no, does that mean they're going to try and catch him and do scientific things to him or her? But then I thought, well, they've never found her yet, so that'll be fine.
My view on it is, if there is something in the lock, then just leave it be. Leave your Nessie alone. She's a Scottish legend, basically, and she's great for tourism. You go up to Drumley Rock or Loch Ness or that area, it's all Nessie tours, Nessie everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But you get these people, I'm coming to Scotland and I'm going to find Nessie, and you think, well, see if you find her, what are you going to do with her?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Put her in your boot and take her back down the road or something, The reason is wet is the top of Britain.
The thing is, what you wouldn't want to happen is Nessie appears one day and eats somebody, because then suddenly all those tours, all the shops, all the teddy bears will get thrown away. Nessie's an evil thing. It ate somebody. It's a wild animal, what do you think?
So nobody's popular then if the local minister gets munched or something, will she? No, I say leave your Nessie alone. She's been in there, for centuries, and she's quite happy paddling about, so leave her be.
Yeah, exactly.
So as I was saying, the plague doctor statue, I noticed that, and I had me thinking, is that statue dedicated to a certain, because, back in the times of the plague, at Edinburgh as well, you plague doctors, and it was doctors who were just committed to helping the plague victims, which 99% of the population weren't too keen on going near. But you did have these individuals that would go in and risk their own life, basically, whatever, to help. The statue in York, is that dedicated to one certain person, or?
No, it is literally dedicated to the fact that we had the plague, and the plague, I'm going to hazard a guess that the plague was thought to be sent from God, the first time around, I think, as a punishment. And obviously the Minster has these grotesques, and the grotesques are, to ward off your evil doings, your bad things. There's like the silly grotesques of women doing bad, or somebody mooning you or being rude, and all that, little demons and stuff and everything else. And so the plague doctor is, all right, the plague doctor himself was meant to be something good, really, in a way that it'd help you, or supposed to help you, but it was not the thing you wanted to come knocking on your door or go visit, because obviously it meant you had the plague. But I think that they did it to represent the fact that the plague came to York. It was very devastating on several occasions. Maybe because the house that has that reputed story, the plague house, is literally on its doorstep, and I suppose it is probably classed as maybe, one of these, I won't call it a deadly sin, one of these, bad diseases sent by God sort of thing, and that just represents something maybe in that regard. I don't know, but just from online what I've read, it just literally represents the fact that the plague has been to York. And I think also because that house is around the corner, you got the story of the little girl who did not die from plague, or various versions of it. But he is up there. The thing is, there's a lot of scaffolding up there at the minute, so I don't think people can see it, but also you do need a good pair of binoculars. However, in a week or two's time, I'm going to go with a friend to see the Minster, because I haven't been inside for a long time. And I want to go into the crypt, because I don't remember if I've ever been in the crypt or not, but you can see bits of the old Roman fortress and the old Norman church and bits like that. But if it's open, I do want to go up to the top, because I think when you're walking along the route to go up to the tower, you will be able to see the plague doctor. So I'm going to see if I can see him and then get a picture. But I do know one thing, before I go into the Minster, I'm going to have to get factor 50 on, because me entering a church might be bad news.
I'm saying nothing about that. I was going to say, did you say, I'm saying not about you entering a church, you know, I don't know what your relationship with the church is like. We used to down the stairs. That reminds me, there's a car park, I'm sure it's London. There's a car park you can go into, and is it London, and it's got part, is it a Roman wall?
Oh, I don't know. I have seen a lot of Roman walls whilst I've been visiting London. My friend took me and we went on this little adventure walking around to various parts. Don't know about a car park, but like I said, there's probably more than one Roman wall. But I do know that when I did a ghost bus down in London years ago, that we drove past this massive car park, or disused car park. It used to be a bus depot, but they stopped using it because of all the activity that's happened, spooky activity. But basically, it's built on top of a mass plague pit in London. But I tell you, where is a spooky atmosphere? Somewhere, and I can never remember the name or which line it is, but somewhere where the tunnels are, you know, the underground tube.
Mm-hmm.
One of the sections of tunnels is literally up against an entire plague pit.
Right.
Yeah, I don't remember which one it is. You can probably look it up. But there is a lovely. If you type into YouTube, assuming it's still there, I have shared it on the page eons ago. There is a mini documentary series. I think it was done by BBC or ITV or somebody about haunted underground, and it is about the tunnels in London, as in the tube. And it just tells you stories that have happened and things like that. And I do recommend watching it. It's very good. It's interesting. So they might mention the plague victims being behind a certain tunnel somewhere.
I'm just writing that down as
drop it down. Yeah.
You must have a few plague pits round about York then, surely.
You'd think so, but actually, the only one that we can think of sort of know of is the one that they always say is underneath the Salvation Army. But the reality is, particularly with my research, because I've read the minutes of the council and I've read a lot of burial records, and when you look at the dates of when people died from in the plague times, a lot of people were buried in the graveyards. But the ones probably before 1604, there will have been plague pits, but where, don't entirely know. A lot of them still went in the graves. But underneath Salvation Army is meant to be a plague pit. And it's down a street called Gillygate. A lot of people call it Gillygate, but it's Gillygate. And it's named after a church that used to be down there called St. Giles. And I'm actually on the hunt for a book that I should have bought donkeys ago, but I didn't think I'd need it, but apparently I do now. And it's called Medieval Churches and something of York.
Amazon, you get everything in that, anything.
I know, but I'm not paying £49 for it.
Library, maybe.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a look in there. I just wanted to see a couple of maps. I can probably find it somewhere. Basically, though, somewhere in the book it shows you where the graveyard was, and somewhere in that graveyard is the plague pit. But I remember when I last looked, and I actually think the graveyard is underneath some houses in the car park that I sometimes use, which is called Union Terrace, because slightly further up from there is what do they call it? A street. Anyway, it's slightly further up the road where the traffic lights are. Used to be called Horse Fair, and that was one of the many plague encampments in York. So in 1604, I think, it was Horse Fair, Hobmore, which was opposite the Knavesmire, the execution site in York, and another one just over Skeldergate Bridge, heading up towards what I think was called Clementhorpe, but I'm not 100% sure, so don't hold me to ransom with that one. So they've probably got plague pits in those areas, but we've never dug into anywhere and gone, oh yes, here's a plague victim. There's a whole load of them here. So yeah, the plague pits are a little bit. I think they all got buried in consecrated ground, really. Because yes, while there was a mass amount of people that died, it wasn't quite on the scale of, say, London. So, for example, There's probably about 10,000 people in 1604. 3,500 were killed over a period of a year. Yes, many of them probably were put into a mass pit, but at the same time, from one record I read for St. Michael the Belfry Church, bless him, this guy buried his wife and about 6 kids over the course of 2 months, but they all went in this graveyard. But that was during 1604, and that tells you that they probably died from plague, and then and they've gone into a grave rather than into a pit.
See, I've always, this might sound daft. It's me, so it probably no sound daft. Well, no sound daft to me. That makes sense. Yeah, I've thought a couple of times, when you think of all the people that's lived in Britain, all down through the century, you're talking millions and millions of people. You think, where are they all buried?
Well,
I know it's a stupid question, but you know.
No, you're quite right. I mean, cremation wasn't just a new thing. They did do that as well throughout different religions, and just kind of forgot. But a lot of them are probably sunk very deep into the soil. Some were probably chucked in at sea. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, you have to remember also, while, yes, millions and millions and millions and millions of people have died, we've now got the highest population that probably ever had on Earth, of human beings anyway. It was probably considerably less, a few million years ago. But either way, one way or the other, they've all gone somewhere. But when I do the talk about the graveyards and how many bodies are believed to be buried within the city of York, excuse me, but that won't just be limited to York. London, Edinburgh, other towns and cities, they'll have had loads of churches and loads and hundreds and thousands of people buried. It's probably just not as excavated or... Sorry, there's sound in the background. It's probably just not as widely researched or, big mass archaeological digs to find it all sort of thing as same as York. That's just an opinion. I don't know that officially. But yeah, when I say to people, oh yeah, you're probably walking on the dead, it's probably the same story in a lot of cities.
Well, it's funny you say that, because just before we move on, Edinburgh, Greyfriars Kirk in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Estimation is there's about 500,000 bodies in there.
Wow, I can believe it if you dig deep enough.
But that's the thing, you don't need to dig deep.
Yeah.
Some of them are maybe just about a foot below the surface. Gustafson, he works out of Greyfriars, and he's got a tray in his office, and it's all bits of bones. Whenever there's been kind of like heavy rainfall or whatever, bones seem to come up through the grass. And he says he's forever picking up bits of bones. So it doesn't matter where you walk in Greyfriars, whether it's a path or grass, you're walking.
You're never alone.
You're never alone. A paved path, but you're still walking. No doubt it's the same in York, and as you say, Edinburgh was thousands and thousands. I think it was 60-odd thousand people died of the plague in Edinburgh.
Yeah, well, that's a much higher number, but obviously, I don't know how big Edinburgh is by comparison, but it's probably a lot more higher number of people living there. Yeah.
And so they had to kind of put them somewhere, I suppose. It's just, these random thoughts that pop in your head every now and again.
Yeah.
And it just kind of goes in and it goes round and round and round for a while.
Yeah. The thing is to keep you up at night when you're laid there trying to sleep. Oh, I wonder. Yeah.
that happens to me as well, though. You'd be lying there and you're like, I wonder where they buried him. And your mind just... You start thinking of possible locations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Get to sleep, Scott. Shut up. Get to sleep. It's live anyway. But I know we've only about 15 minutes or so left, but I got this drawing, didn't I? But I'm going to try it again. And I have written it down, folks, by the way. None. I was going to say Nuneaton. It's no Nuneaton.
Nuneaton Hall.
Nuneaton Hall. I
Okay.
don't know. I say Nuneaton.
There is a place called Nuneaton.
I know Nuneaton is an actual place, but Nunnington, what I just said there.
Yeah, Nunnington Hall. So Nunnington Hall is a National Trust place, a nice little hall. I have done a ghost hunt there with Most Haunted. I think I've attended one. I didn't mean I hosted one or anything like that. And it was fun. But if you watch an episode of Most Haunted, they talk about how there's a lady there who may or may not have killed her stepson, and then her own son fell out of a window and died, and then she died, and there's all the spooky stuff. Now, Nunnington Hall is very spooky and very haunted. However, when I was writing and researching for stories of York and this, that, and the other, I was researching an awful lot. And I don't mind saying this because it is actually in a really old book somewhere. When I say old, I mean it's either late 1800s or early 1900s, when it was sort of an investigation into some of the stories of York. Kind of look like what I've been doing. And it goes on about Nunnington Hall and its ghost with the lady, the lady of Nunnington Hall. And I've actually done a sort of audio story that I recorded on my phone of Nunnington Hall. It's on the page. Instagram and TikTok somewhere, and it's a great story, but the story's not true. There was never a lady Nunnington who maybe killed her stepson, or that her son fell out of a window and died. That story came from a lady who wrote it, but she wrote it because she did see genuinely a ghostly lady. And I don't remember the name of the lady in question, but apparently she was a nice lady, not a bad lady. But she'd seen her haunting, I think, near the bridge, which you kind of go over to get to the entrance of Nunnington, or it might be the other bridge. There's a couple of little nice bridges there. And yeah, she said she'd seen this lady, mentioned it to a member of staff or somebody, and they said, "Oh yes, that'll be lady such and such who died here. She's quite friendly." And as a result of that, she wrote this story. But also, there is a wooden panelled room in there where they do get a really spooky shadow figure. And we think that it could also be potentially this woman. It certainly sent many people running out of the room when they've been staying over in previous years before it became, a place to visit. And she wrote this story based on those experiences and the alleged hauntings there as well. So yes, the lady Nunnington and the two children don't exist. It is just a story, but confirmed by the woman who wrote it herself in this book. But it's based on an actual story of a woman who died, just natural causes or whatever, who was the lady of the manor or the lady of the hall.
There was not that is, but it's when you get these shows like Most Haunted.
Yeah.
We were on it. It's when you get. And they'll get a snippet of information after somebody, and then bang, all of a sudden it's a mass haunting, and or that ball.
Well, they can only go by what they're told, I suppose. Just the same as I did when I was first doing the tours and stuff. I could only go by what I was told. It wasn't until after years of research that I'd tell things differently, or just don't tell them at all now, and things like that. So yeah.
It's like it's like the Mackenzie Poltergeist story, for Greyfriars.
Aye.
We all know the background to that story. It doesn't exist, but George Mackenzie is painted as one of the most evil men in Scottish history, etc. But I spoke a lot to Jamie, and he ordered the death of 1,200 Covenanters. But at the end of the day, as Jamie says, he was only doing as the king ordered him to do.
Yeah.
He was actually one of the men responsible for the abolishing witch trials in Scotland.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he's painted as this big evil.
Horrible person, but it makes for a good yarn, doesn't it? I mean, it's like the Golden Fleece. Even though the Golden Fleece, we now know that the airman was called Gerard Tierney. He was English. His wife never cheated on him or left him or anything like that. Even though we know all this, it's been revealed. I did it. A gentleman called Mike Cavell, who researched it a couple of years previous, apparently. Well, I know he did it. I've spoken to him since. And we all found out about it. And I've told the Golden Fleece since more than once, this is the name of the person, because they wanted to know, they wanted to write up something. But it's still known as Jack Monroe because it's been Jack Monroe since the 90s and everybody expects it to be this story. And so it's just easier to just go, oh, it's this, rather than changing the story or altering it.
Aye.
But it's quite sad because this person was a real person and this isn't what happened.
But that's it, 100%, though. It's that person was a real person, but they're remembered in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like George Mackenzie, folk put him down as being evil, but at the end of the day, he wasn't. He was. If he hadn't carried out the king's orders, he would have ended up in the scaffold, and his family would have probably ended up in the scaffold as well.
Put it to you this way: if I die and I get remembered for being this horrible woman, I'll be miffed, but I'd definitely haunt you.
I'll not be very chuffed at that, she was an eater, he was an evil, and all the rest.
Yeah.
I'll be coming back to. I was actually an alright kind of guy, I had my flaws, but on the whole, there's a lot of stories about, they're exactly the same, and it's just that they're told just to sell tickets, bums on seats, whatever you want to call it. It's like, Mark Egerton, who does a lot in Hinchinbrook House, the amount of stories that come out there. But Mark's worked at Hinchinbrook for decades, and he's told me a lot of it's crap. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
They still tell. Selling the ghost, I believe, is an American term for it.
Yeah.
Ghost, and it's quite sad, as you see the lady that wanders there. She's a gentle soul. She doesn't mean anybody any harm. But no doubt you're going to get these people. She was a witch, and she was burned at the stake in 1545. And children came back. She's out for revenge, and
yeah. But at the same time, I suppose also though, providing you do not take every single story as seriously, you take it as an entertainment value, then it is exactly that, and it is entertaining, and that is absolutely fine because we all like to watch things or do things for entertainment, and it's fun. That having that thrill, that fright. I think we do seem to enjoy that. But when it's about something historical, if it's about a real person, then maybe you shouldn't twist it as much.
Aye, if you're talking about a real person in history, then try and get it right. It's like years and years, a couple of years ago, there was a podcast owned by two people who used to be friends, and they were doing talk about Edinburgh, talk about the vaults, talk about Greyfriars, and it was Jamie contacted me, and Jamie was raging, because they were everything, and their podcast was bollocks basically.
Yeah.
And he says, "Look, can you do a show with me to put the records straight?"
Yeah.
And they showed a picture in the vaults, and we've been there quite a few times. And the guy in the podcast is saying that's a hole that it's like 200 feet deep, and they used to just throw people into it. But it wasn't. The picture was actually a corridor that led to the old morgue, but they took the picture and turned it round to make it look like a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
But I was looking at the picture and think, that's the corridor that took you through to the morgue.
Yeah.
Maybe. So Jamie, with these people, they showed a picture of. They said it was the vaults. It was a Glasgow Underground when it was getting built.
Yeah.
This is the vaults. But it was a picture of Glasgow. I mean, I'm from Glasgow. That's the Glasgow Underground when they were building it back in 1913, whenever it was. It's not the vaults at all. This is the vaults, and you're really scared. Bollocks. Do you know what I mean? But again, it sells, doesn't it? It gets people and it gets people interested. But you're talking about actual real people, then I think you need to be as accurate as you can.
Yeah, where possible, because obviously not everything is so easy to find. And I know that because it's taken me years to find some stuff, and it just depends on what's available to you at the time as well.
Aye, and if you can't find the information, then just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
I'd rather somebody didn't talk about something than make up a whole load of bollocks. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But before we wind up, I'm going to get this name right. I know. Good.
Goodroom Gate.
Aye, that one. What you
That
said.
one. Goodroom Gate. What do you want to know about Goodroom Gate? Goodroom Gate, lovely old street. Has a lovely old York tea rooms down there. Highly recommend them. Hi, Tony and Thomas. It goes past the sort of adjoining street, which is called College Street, that leads you up to the Minster and St William's College. And another debunked story. So, in St William's College, there's a story within a story, if you read the original Ghost Book of York, called Ghosts of an Ancient City by John B. Mitchell. And I did a little bit of research into it as well. But basically, the short version is that it's meant to be haunted by two brothers who murdered a priest for his purse. Then the older of the two brothers dobbed the younger brother in for the crime, and the younger brother took it on the chin and got hanged for it. And then eventually the older one gets a conscience, and he either then hangs himself or he starves to death or whatever. He dies in the college anyway. And it's meant to be his ghost that is seen pacing up and down. Well, this is the other spooky thing. So the person who wrote the story probably didn't know any of this when they were writing the story. But the college itself, for the dates that it was meant to have happened... No, sorry, start again. The college itself has never had that happen there, but oddly, right on the corner of that street, which then becomes Goodroom Gate, and you can look this up, there's something called Medieval Murder Maps online, and it's a great thing. It was done by a multitude of people from different universities, but it's produced by Cambridge University. It's called Medieval Murder Maps Online. You can type in the city you want to look at, and if you look at York and you look at that sort of area, it turns out that in the 1300s there was two brothers who murdered a chaplain literally on the corner away from that building, but that was years before that building was even built or thought of. So it's quite uncanny that somebody has written a story about two brothers murdering a priest, but it's not actually based on anything to do with what actually did happen around the corner, because they wouldn't have known about that until, unless they did the research, and even then, unless you could speak Latin, you ain't going to be researching that stuff.
I'm quite rusty on my Latin. I'm afraid I've let that slide.
I don't know. I struggle enough with English. Never mind.
I struggle enough with Scottish. Do you know what I
mean? Yes. I'm not going to learn Latin.
So here's just before we wind up. Here's a question. You've done many tours in York. For some reason, I was going to say London there, but I corrected myself just in time. You've done a lot. Excuse me, we're talking London. A lot of tours in York. Have you ever? What's your sort of scariest experience that you've had? Have you ever had a Mulligan back round that corner moment?
I've never had a place where I've never gone back to, because I've since, got the guts and gone back, and it's never been like it again. But my super scary experiences, I'm going to sneeze, I want to sneeze, no I don't. Sorry, that would have to happen. There was once time on tour where there was actually legitimately a shadow figure that appeared and then disappeared. I only saw it at the corner of my eye, but the whole group spotted it. And that happened sort of near St Saviour's Gate, church, sorry. But it didn't stop me from going up there. I thought it was quite interesting. My spooky, scary incidences where I've thought, I don't want to go back in there, but I have been back in since, was in number 35 Stonegate. So number 35 now is a shop called, excuse me, itchy nose now, London Wise. Before it was that, it used to be called Oliver Bonas, and before it was that, it was called Haunted. Now, for people who are fans, they'll know exactly what it used to be. It was a haunted house attraction, but with no actors. It was just like a little radio tannoy that came over and tells you the hauntings or the history and stuff. Many of which the hauntings were made up, by the way. I don't wish to put a downer on it, but I've done a lot of research, and it turns out many of those stories were made for the entertainment. But there is some stuff that has happened there that is genuine and really has been spooky, and really does make your hair stand on end. And when I was in there, I'd had my hair pulled, I'd seen figures walking about, and it really, really was a terrifying place. There's loads of people that have been in there. They've been in what used to be the seance room, and they've taken pictures, and it looks like there's loads of shadows and things. When I say shadows, like a white mist shadow rather than a shadow, if you will. And yeah, for a long time, I wouldn't walk around certain parts of that building by myself. But now if I walked around it, I think I'd be mostly fine. Almost like going home, because they're used to me and I'm used to them. Does that make sense?
Look, that makes 100% sense.
Yeah.
And Laura still, she'll tell you this, because we do a place called Loudon Kirk, because that's where Sarah and I married. It's a disused Kirkyard. It dates back to the 1100s. But when we first started, we'd been doing it for about 4 years, and we must be over 40 investigations here. But when we first started doing it, the girls would not go down the back of the Kirkyard. We always felt there was a presence at the back of the Kirkyard. They would not get anywhere near it. And it was a good, I don't know, months and months passed. And I took Laura there one night herself and just left her. I was in the car outside. I didn't go to Tesco or McDonald's or anything, I was in the car, and I left her down the back. And we go to a stage where the atmosphere shifted. The atmosphere felt different to us. It was as if whoever was there recognised us and said, they're back. It might sound daft to some people, but no, they're back. Yeah. So I know exactly what you mean. The atmosphere can change. One spirit gets used to you, and that's another thing. When people say, why do you get back to the same location? So, well, we've been to different locations, there's a one-off here and there, but if you get a location where you're comfortable and you're getting a relationship, basically, with whoever's there, then keep at it. Yeah. That makes sense.
There's been a lot of places where I've either lived in or been to and what have you, and there's sometimes where I didn't really get used to it because they obviously didn't like me. And I think sometimes if you've got a spirit that just didn't like women, then there may be that reason that, that didn't seem to bother anybody else. I remember when I used to live in Somerset, a lot of people might remember when they watched my old videos, I was briefly down there when I had my ex boyfriend, and I was living there for a bit, temporary. And then, excuse me, it was a big, massive Georgian house. Built in like early 1800s, and there was a corridor that led to the bathroom, but there's a back bedroom, and I hated it. And psychologically, I thought, well, it is a dark corridor. It looks very foreboding. It could just be psychological, because even though I believe in ghosts, I'll always also look for the reason why I might feel that way, because sometimes it isn't paranormal. It is just
you need to look at
the dark and all that. And it is a very dark corridor. However, I used to go down there and I'd get into that back room and I think, this is horrible. And there's a man here, and I don't know who he is, but he does not like me. I don't think he likes anybody, but it's not nice. And the cats never seem to be bothered. They'd traipse down there and sleep in the bathroom because there was a lovely warm radiator right next to the seat, so they weren't bothered, and they'd come with me. But sometimes they'd sit and look as though they were looking at somebody. I was like, don't do that, please. I'm here by myself tonight. Don't do that. But incidentally, I got talking to a couple of people who, it was the family home for them, some of them, but they lived sort of down the road now. He had a big family, did my former partner. And they came along, and I said, can I ask you what's going on with that back bedroom? It's just a junk room now, but, it feels a bit weird. And said, oh, yeah, we don't like going down there. And basically all the family, except for Richard himself, because he never noticed anything, and his mother, she didn't seem to pick up on anything. Nobody liked that back room. And I thought, I'm pleased it's not just me. It's clearly there is something down there. and I never got used to it. I mean, I could go in it during the day, but even then, unless there was somebody nearby, down the corridor, I just couldn't. I just didn't like that back room. There was just something about it that just said, no, something's happened here.
Maybe.
And I personally think, from my own senses, that there's been a man in there who's done some terrible things to women or a woman or whatever. That's my personal feeling, because it was the women who didn't like it, and they all agreed that there's been something that's happened in there, or there's been a person in there who wasn't particularly nice, and we don't like it.
And he still sees that it's his territory.
Probably. We weren't welcome. Put it to you that way.
It's the same as the Covenanters prison in Edinburgh. That's now locked because there's over 3,000 reported attacks in it, and everybody used to blame it on the Mackenzie poltergeist. But
it could be something completely different. Absolutely.
Well, I think and I spoke to Jamie about this, and he kind of agrees that back when it was an actual prison, the guards were notoriously brutal.
A lot of that. Yeah, we had that in the York Castle prison. There were, we won't swear, but they were horrible people. Yeah.
So our theory is that it's a former guard that's still there, and he still sees that area, even though there's tombs there, and the prison predated the tombs. He still sees that as his domain.
Right.
My area. And I spoke to Jamie, and he says, I believe it's really, really possible. But a lot of folks say, listen, Mackenzie poltergeist bollocks, it's no.
Well, also, you are in a graveyard. There's a lot of dead in there. It's going to be one of them.
Well, I think he's one of the old guards, and he still sees that. And anybody that comes in there is fair game.
Yes. You know what I mean? Yeah.
We'll wind it up there. I know you're a busy lady, and my time was limited with you. But I'll keep a hold of you just a wee second after we come off.
Yeah.
So where can people find you?
So the tour itself is called Shadows of York. There's myself and Dan and Josh who conduct the tours. I do a lot of the private bookings these days, and Dan and Josh do them. I'm also training up a guide as well, so providing he passes all the tests and everything, he will be joining us as well. So Shadows of York, you can find me via the website, which you just type in Shadows of York on your Google search or whatever search bar. We've also got Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, although I don't post that much on TikTok at the moment, just because I've not had time to make up any new material as such. You can find out a lot about different parts, and it's not all spooky. A lot of it is historical as well. Things that I've done research for, or sometimes it's just me and Dan and having a laugh. You won't see videos of Josh. Josh is an accountant by day. He likes to keep himself to himself, but he's very good at doing tours. It's very dry and deadpan in his presentation, and very, very Yorkshire, so he's got quite a strong accent. But then you got me and Dan who are actors, and we like to prat about every now and then. So sometimes I'll make a funny video, or as I've been doing recently, I've been winding up with a toss. Keep threatening to run off with a ghost bus, or I frightened the conductor a few months back. And
winding up the competition, you mean?
Yeah, just for a bit of fun. We all like each other. We're all friends, and stuff. So, I did a video where basically one night, Dorian Deathly, who does the Deathly Dark tour, he'd left behind. He carries a hand on a stick. I don't know what it's for. Right. The stick carries on, and they left it behind somewhere.
Does it point?
It points. It also does. It extends. It's a movable hand. Anyway, Dan had just finished his tour, and he sent me a picture saying, "Dorian's lost his hand." Oh, somebody's left their hand, because there's a load of guides for the Deathly Dark tour, and they all carry a hand. I says, "All right, well, best give it back to him then. He's only down the road at his office." And then I went, hang on a minute, we could have some fun with this. So I actually checked in with Dorian's wife first. I messaged and says, "Yeah, I found your hand." And I'll let you have it back, but do you mind if we have a bit of fun with it first? Do a video. And she says, oh, yeah, we're all up for that. So did a video of us finding this hand, trying to work out what it's for, scratching our backsides or doing whatever with it, and silly stuff, and then handing it back to them.
You should have took it to a graveyard or something.
We don't have many graveyards in York.
You don't?
No, they're all buried on top of it. So there's one that I can go to, but I can't get into it because it belongs to York Dig. It's at St Saviour's Church. We've got Fulford Cemetery, which is all the way out in Fulford, and all the other graveyards are out of the city. Our graveyards inside the actual centre are pretty much either locked up and you can't go in because, they're looking after them and keeping yobs out and stuff, or we don't have them because they've been built on top of, and all the graves have been spread out a bit.
All right, I thought they were doing graveyards.
Yeah. So I'll quickly tell you. So, and I tell this at the beginning of the tour. I used to tell it a lot in the video, so I know I'm not giving anything away. We used to have, by the late 1400s, and I learned this when I worked at the Yorkshire Museum in York, we used to have 46 churches, several monasteries, and the Minster Cathedral. And by the mid-1800s, we only had about 26 left. We've still got roughly 20 to 26 churches left in York in the vicinity. But every single one of those churches had a graveyard, and you walk around York and you're going, well, there's a church, there's a church, there's a church, there's a church, but where's the graveyard, where's the graveyard, where's the graveyard? Where are they? And the thing is, by the mid-1800s, our graveyards were overflowing, quite literally. Like you were saying, how the bones come up to the top whenever it rains in Greyfriars. Well, basically, that was what was happening in York. And so we had to do something about them. So they made it that people couldn't bury the dead in the graveyard anymore. They were full. So they built Fulford Cemetery, which is outside the city of York. People were against it initially because they were insistent that their loved ones must be buried inside consecrated ground next to a church. But obviously it's consecrated ground out there, but they were explaining, look, you can't bury it. They're full. They're stinking. They're just floating out to the top. You can't do it anymore. So they started burying the dead outside the city, but they still needed to do something about the graveyards because they were stinking. They were too high. They were a health and safety hazard because water was going through the bodies and then into the drinking water. A bit like similar story with Haworth, with the Brontes. That's why a lot of people died in there, because the water was filtering through the graves and then into the drinking water. Yeah. Anyway, the reality is that we have at least 500,000 bodies buried inside the city of York, and you're not relocating all that lot. And so they kind of spread them all out a bit and built on top of them all. So yes, there would have been graveyards, and they are still there. It's just you're walking on top of them or driving on top of them, or in some cases staying in hotels that are built on top of them, but you just don't know.
You see, this takes me back to what I was saying earlier on about of all the people who's lived in Britain. They're going to be buried somewhere.
Oh, they are. And that's what I meant. It's not just York that'll be like that. London, Edinburgh, many cities. This is something to think about tonight, children. Wherever you live now in the UK, when you go out onto your street, just think there might be somebody right under your feet buried, because the dead had to go somewhere. And there's lots of I mean, even around here, there's villages that have disappeared that were here in the medieval times but no longer exist. Well, they will have all buried the dead there as well, and yeah.
So that's a thought before you go to bed.
Yeah. Even your own new build home today might be built on top of an undiscovered graveyard.
Well, I don't know if yours is just 2 years past in August. I don't know if that still comes under a new build or no. I don't know if that still class as a new build, but this is built on fields, so you never know. We shall wind it up there now. You put a fear of death in everybody. Folk will be going to bed thinking,
yeah.
Where's my shovel? Don't I mean?
Do you know the amount of people are thinking, you know what, I might just dig up that back garden.
Aye.
It needs an overhaul. I'll see if I can dig deep enough.
So if your partner disappears into the back garden at 2 or 3 in the morning with a shovel, then you know why. You know.
Yeah.
We can't shovel, you can't do it now because the ground's absolutely frozen solid. So you need a
Mm.
JCB to crack the ground open.
Yeah, at the moment, yeah.
So we'll wind up. I was meant to wind up 15 minutes ago, but hey ho. So
Yeah, we get chatting, don't we?
yeah, it's you. You're a bad influence. Aye, so give Mackenzie and Cheryl's Yacht Tours a wee look up, folks. She will be back again with us, don't worry. But we're going to wind it up there, and we're not live again to next week when we've got international TV media Barry John Baza, the Baza, as we call him, Bazman. He's come back in to come out and see us. But major thanks to Mackenzie for coming in, and you've always seen her again. And do give her a look up because, as you can tell, it's all interesting stuff. And don't go into your garden at 2 or 3 in the morning and start digging. Leave it till the ground's a bit softer.
Yeah, wait till summer.
I wait till summer because they'll still be there. Let's face it, they're not
Oh,
going
I'm
anywhere.
not going anywhere, are they?
So they'll still be there June, July time. Just go and dig it up then. You know what I mean? All right, folks. So cheers and out, and we'll talk to you very soon. Take care. Bye. Bye.
Bye.